Well, welcome everyone to this very first FLP webinar. I think this is a brilliant thing that CGF has come up with. So well done for Flavia for being the driver of it. I know we're all very busy with sort of dealing with our own crises in our own businesses in our own countries, but I've found it enormously useful, the international conversations I've been having, especially since I'm in a country which is lagging behind Europe by probably about 2 weeks if we benchmark ourselves on where the UK is. So we're learning those lessons very fast. So the structure of today is just to have some interesting people and to have a conversation with them. I think we will have a chance for you to ask questions as well. But in typical CGF fashion, we shall first go to the antitrust commitment, which is to say, please do not share any corporate secrets. Please do not talk about pricing. Or anything that's identified in this well-written note below. And so touch your heart and salute or whatever you do in your country, and we will keep by the antitrust commitment. Good. That was definitely the low point in the webcast. Brilliant to have with us some old FLPers who were part of the committee when I first joined. We've got Carsten Kammen, we've got Joop Mann, and in a minute we'll have Richard Flint joining us as well. So Carsten is an FMCG, I was going to say lifer, but you're still too young to be a lifer, but worked at Coca-Cola, Mondelez, Kellogg's, before that Nielsen, so certainly worked in some of the big manufacturers, now with Nestle based in Berlin. So a big welcome to you, Carsten.
Thank you.
And then Joop, dialing in from China in the evening there at 7:30 at night. He just told Joop was with Spar when I first met him. He's now responsible for Sam's Club in China. He's the chief operating officer there. So clearly a very interesting perspective that he can offer, as he's probably ahead of the curve from where some of us are going to get to. So Joop, a big welcome to you.
Thank you.
And then in a moment, no doubt, we'll be joined by Richard Flint. Richard has worked at Marks and Spencer's. He was part of direct to customer for Nike, and he's now chief operating officer and on the board of Hamer in the Netherlands. And he'll be a little bit late, but extremely fashionable, as is his wont. So just to kick it off, I think given the state of the times that we're in, it'd be great to understand just how is your health and how is your family? Joop, are you and your loved ones doing okay in these unusual times?
Yeah, I think in the overall scheme of things, we're all fine. The kids are actually bound by the schools. Schools have been suspended, so they take courses online. Business-wise, I think a lot of things are getting back to normal. On the 23rd of January, where everything starts to take place, with the locking of a major city in central China, and that's where all hands were on deck by the team. And I think the team did an extremely great job in keeping our customers safe, as well as our personnel at the front line safe. We've been interacting quite rigorously as a team, and really try to make sure that all our retail outlets are safe and sound during the whole virus outbreak. I think all in all, in the overall scheme of things, we're safe, but we are extremely mindful of a potential second wave. And also our minds as well as hearts are with our international colleagues in other markets, because they're experiencing the same. So happy to share our experience here from the market, and hope that we're able to keep more people as well as more customers safe during the next few months. And I think in times like this, it's really important to stay close together as one team, as well as one family, despite that we are, using a different banner above our doors.
Well, that's fantastic. It's one of the most hopeful things I've heard in these discussions when you say things are returning to normal. So we'll definitely ask you some follow-up questions there. But Carsten also wanted to give you a chance to come in, a little bit of a different part of the journey for you. How are you and your family?
Yeah, all good so far. So I'm working from home and I'm enjoying time with the kids, which is I think the biggest personal change, and I'm very glad, that my kids are already 13 and 7, so, and not 1 and 3 because of some of my colleagues, where there's a lot of background noise on the telephone calls, so it's a bit difficult, to have that. But so far okay. Situation here in the capital in Berlin is quite odd, because as I said, we've never experienced that before. Streets are empty. So, but the good thing is, now really the people understood, how serious this situation is. So that means this social distancing, even if I go to the office, is really respected. And hopefully, that the statistics change at some point, because so far, there's not really good signs. We are all learning, on how to read statistics and how trustful that is. Sometimes not really. On Germany, I'm really, I would never thought I would never say that. I'm really happy with the leadership of our government. About Angela Merkel. Now, I'm sure she's about to retire very soon. But and a crisis, these kind of importance of stability is really increasing. So nowadays, nobody's complaining about the government. So I think it was the first time since 10 years or so. And it's quite interesting, how quickly the topics are changing. And now nobody's talking about the far right in Germany. That's kind of they're kind of really ignorable nowadays. And I really appreciate that we have a lot of subject matter experts, coming to public to rationalize this huge amount of information spread by social media. So it means you have some experts, doctors and professors, that are really listened, they have their daily podcast here. So it's quite interesting, and this is I think nowadays very important to rationalize, the statistics, and to have a bit of to reduce the fear and the panic. From a business perspective, I'm not sure, if I should go in that direction now or later. So it's really,
Well,
yep. I can wait.
Well, I think I just saw Richard Flint come into the room. I think he's just getting his microphone set up, so we might have him there in a moment to join us. But what you're saying about the news is something interesting that we should spend a bit of time on, because the mixture between fake news, real expertise, and something that's a blend of the two of them has been quite extraordinary here in the South African context. And I'm sure it's been the same in your countries as well.
Yeah. And here, I'm really thankful, that this, is what's currently happening. It's really helping to, I would say, to rationalize, the discussions. So that's really something which needs to happen now to avoid a bit panic.
Thanks, Carson. Richard, have you joined us? Are you with us? No. All right. So he'll be with us in a second. I think he's listening in, just trying to get his sound sorted out. So you spoke a little bit about the fact that it's from the 23rd of January, things are slightly beginning to return to normal. What does it feel like if you go shopping in a Sam's Club in China today? What is the shopping experience? Do you mind giving us a bit of color?
Yeah, I think the shoppers are still very mindful of the fact that social distances became a norm in this market. Shoppers are using e-commerce massively. We see a massive growth in the overall e-commerce business within our own company, as well as the rest of the market. And additionally, we do not really see rationing only in the first couple of days when the virus outbreak, created panic in the market. There was some rationing on like daily staples like vegetables, meat, rice, oil, but that has calmed down during the course of last couple of months. I think still a lot of essential medical items like masks, sanitizers, etc., are still quite short in the market. But in the overall scheme of things, shoppers became quite cautious on where they shop, who they buy from, and where the goods are coming from. So e-commerce became the norm. Yeah, we as a company, we did a lot of work around sanitization of our stores and clubs, our keeping our distribution centers as well as our supply chain full. Yeah, but it's always within crisis management. We need to plan for the worst and hope for the best. And this is what we should be doing. In terms of the shoppers, they became quite familiar with our practices, and it became a norm in the market. And I think that will have an overall impact upon the overall shopping behavior in the next couple of months. If you look at other industries like F&B, they're still being impacted. They try to offset the loss in dining in by means of doing takeouts, serving more shoppers and eaters via the e-commerce. So it has changed the overall landscape of retail as well as F&B in this market.
That's great. Richard, we can see you. Can you hear us? Richard? Carsten, maybe if you could give us a view for Germany a little bit later. What does it feel like to go shopping in Germany today? Are there lots of restrictions around how you shop or changes to the way the journey happens?
Yeah, it's really about the changed opening hours and this changed frequency. Then the people that are now going to shopping and are going once a week. So that means it's really a different way of shopping. That traffic is really different. We see now, as Job already mentioned, these move from offline to online. We see a huge impact on out-of-home business. Now I'm working in a company that's not that dependent on out-of-home, but remember my former company, Coca-Cola, that was 50% of the business. That's a complete breakdown, I would say. So that has a really significant impact. What we see in terms of dynamics, that the significant reduction of promotions, which is particularly if we work in Europe, these very saturated markets. Was a lot of competition. The promotions are accounting for 50% of our business. So if now there's a significant reduction on that, the importance is higher of getting products listed, and think about different ways of working. That's really changing. Then the times of clearly empty shelves when you see no toilet paper on the shelves. Is a bit over. So that means there are this the move from these very first panic purchase of non-perishable products, moved more to a bit of an adjustment, I would say. It's interesting how these the impact on assortment, because I remember in my times when I was a student at the university, one of my most favorite products were these canned ravioli. So and I thought since 20 years the time is over. So, but now I think that we have an increase, by 50%. So that's kind of it means some products are coming back, and it reminds me a bit, on what roles we play in that business. What sometimes that get a bit lost. So that means to make sure that consumers and shoppers are getting what they want. Here, retailers, but as well producers, play a fundamental role. And nowadays, that's really what the jobs are, not only in the supermarkets at the cashiers, but as well in the production. And so that's really some people are really it's not us. I think it's not us, but some people are really playing key roles here, and to make sure that the business is keep going. So.
That's fascinating. You talk about people buying things that are unusual. I feel like we need to put recipes out for what to do with canned meat, because the canned meat category has exploded. All these people who've never bought canned meat in their life, and now they suddenly have a cupboard full of it. So they're going to have no idea how to eat.
Yeah.
Richard, are you with us? Seems Richard might only be eye candy today.
Good enough.
Well, let's cut back to to you a little bit, Joop. So in terms of the, you mentioned how hard the teams had worked to keep the staff healthy and safe. Can you talk a little bit more about the specific things that you and some of the other Chinese retailers did to keep your staff safe?
Yeah, I think first of all, we need to keep our shoppers safe. So what we did, in every outlet, we disinfected the stores and clubs every 4 hours. And additionally, we are imposing body temperature checks at the entrance. Everyone with a temperature higher than 37.3 degrees Celsius were not allowed to enter the stores. And at the same time, what we did for our staff at the front line, we gave them masks. So everyone received masks. At the checkouts as well as the front end, we provided our staff with gloves as well as goggles. So we want to make sure that the people who are working with customers at the front line, we need to make sure that they are kept safe, and that is our priority number one since day one, and it still is. We need to make sure that our the people who are working at the front line are safe. If we're not able to ensure their safety, we prefer to close down the store rather than keeping them in an unsafe condition. So those are the things that we're doing for both our customers as well our frontline workers.
It's interesting, masks and goggles and gloves. I think masks
Correct.
is a very controversial point in South Africa. Just the masks and gloves was, you guys have really committed to masks and goggles and gloves, which is,
correct.
really interesting.
Yeah.
James, when you want to jump in and share anything from the wider world, please just touch your face so that I know you want to talk. That's a joke. Don't touch your face. It's illegal. Just jump in and come. Anything to add? Otherwise, I'm going to carry on. Oh, you're.
I've been unmuted by Flavia.
Oh wow, the power!
I had one question for you, Joop, which was: did you have any supply side problems getting the protective equipment for your team?
Yes, we did, and I think since day one we knew that was going to happen. So we set up a separate team who were tasked to source masks, sanitizers, disinfectants. Those were the three areas that we were looking after. We took them away from their day-to-day job, and they were solely focused around that type of sourcing. We had to use our national supply chain as well as our global supply chain just to get enough supply, and it worked. And additionally, we are able to give the families of our of our team additional facial masks as well, as a benefit, and it and was taken quite positively by the family members, and we were quite happy that we're able to do it, and we were ahead of the curve. We still see some retailers during the climax of the virus outbreak were struggling to keep their workers safe. We're happy that we were in a position to provide protection.
Thank you for that, because I'm really struck in your answer by the fact that around the world, different countries are adopting nationally specific public health interventions, and we're becoming a whole series of separate cells. But when it comes to the market for sourcing relevant materials, that's still a global market.
Correct.
And so people are still, if you look at who are the buyers of US-made equipment, for instance, the federal government's a long way down the list. There are a lot of separate states and other nation states above them in all of the customer lists, and I think that's that's something which we wouldn't have imagined before this crisis, that you'd get that polarization between very national for some things, still very global for others.
Yeah. Richard, wave if you can hear us. Ah, Flavia may have muted you. The power's going to her head.
Richard, you have self-muted yourself, so I cannot unmute you. You have to do it.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Ah,
Fantastic. Good persistence.
sorry about that,
Thank you
guys.
for
Sorry,
sticking
good to
through.
see you all. Sorry, I had a bit of a
So
yeah. But on
I gave you a
Microsoft
big
Teams,
intro.
yeah, Teams, Zoom, everything last 10 minutes. So sorry.
No problem. Well, Richard, I'm going to bring you straight into the conversation. We gave you a little introduction. We started off with Joop and Karsten just giving a bit of how they were doing, how their family was doing, and then what the current situation in their country is. I think you're still in the Netherlands, but Hema has obviously got a broader role than that. Do you want to kick off with that for us, please?
Yeah, sure, guys. First, hi to everybody, and hope you're staying safe. And yeah, lovely to see you. Yeah, Amsterdam, where I'm based, Netherlands, is very, very much in, I would call it a semi-lockdown. 3 people allowed out at any one time, but most retail is open. I think the difference I see to Spain, UK, other markets is a lot of retail still remains open. Hospitality, takeaway, restaurants fully closed. So for most retailers, hospitality is closed and food tends to be very limited. But retail is open. Family are doing fine. Kids are away from school, home schooling as we speak. Yeah, and I don't think it feels as probably restrictive as my colleagues who are certainly in Paris or in Madrid, Barcelona, or in the Middle East, or for that matter in Mexico. So that probably gives you a collective view of where we are. From a business perspective, we have about half our business open. So our Dutch business is fully trading. We've seen obviously significant traffic decline, but all stores are trading and customers are very, very positive about the fact we're able to do that. We actually had screens in place a week ago. So we're a bit ahead of the curve in terms of going for barrier between customer and team member. Our online channel is, as predicted, seeing a very big uptake and uptick, but a very different product mix to what we normally sell. Apparel is at a standstill. Hard goods is doing really good, well, and food's obviously really where the action is about. I think from a business and a contingency perspective, we're managing it pretty well. We've got a crisis team, we've got regular communication to staff, external bodies. And so where we've actually had to close complete countries, those teams are at home. They're still being communicated to weekly, almost daily. And we're spreading resource such as marketing from countries that aren't open to countries that are trading. So that would probably give you an overall summary.
That's great. Thanks, Richard. So semi-lockdown, what does that mean when if you were to go and try and do your shopping at a physical store? Would they do access control? Are they controlling how you shop through the store, what you buy, or was it pretty normal?
Yeah, no, it's 1.5 meters. There's very little retail accepting cash, or you can take cash if you in certain retailers, but certainly social distancing is taking place in retail. It's very orderly. There's been a bit of panic buying in the likes of Ahold, Jumbo, but nothing to the stage I've seen in other markets around the world. And I think generally it's being well observed now. Before this latest stage of semi-lockdown, I think it's fair to say there was little observation of the social distancing and groups together. Now it's significant to a degree. There's a big call here about whether schools even closed, because the Dutch government were very much into herd immunity, and in the early stages of the pandemic, and they see kids as no risk whatsoever. So actually I can walk with my wife and the 3 kids, or I could walk with 7 kids. That's not a risk group. Now, the risk comes with where the kids come into contact with more elderly people, etc., etc., but hopefully gives you where this market is at the moment.
Yeah, feels like we're all at very, very different points.
Yeah.
Carsten, we've spoken a lot about retail here. Must have been a big change for the manufacturers, just in terms of how those manufacturing plants and factories are working. Clearly, you can work from home, but it's hard for other members of your team to work from home. How has that ended up playing?
Yeah, I think the particular departments now, it's supply chain, it's the demand planning, it's our sales force, our sales force at home. So was of course some implications, and it's really about to ensure somehow the product availability. And that is in some areas, and it's really increased on specific SKUs, but we are thinking as well on specific pack sizes, and it's about to simplify operations, to make it happen. So that's and then hope for the best, that the fallout is not that big, that we ensure a kind of a maintenance. But so far I would say that's okay. So, and we are kind of a production is going, so that's kind of a so far so good, but not sure how it will go. That's bit of the bit of the difficulties.
Sure. And have you found that in uncertain times people have moved towards trusted brands like Nestle away from own brands, or is that not an obvious trend that you're seeing in your experience?
No, I think they are a typical set of products. I would not say that's could be a private label or a branded product. So, but it's there's a more movement to a certain portfolio. Like I said, ravioli, frozen pizza, noodles, rice. That's the typical things. Where but I think it's more particularly in this phase of panic purchase. The consumers try to get what they can get. Because there were a lot of out of stocks. So I think for the general statement, that there's a movement to branded products, I cannot say that. Maybe Nielsen will tell us in a month from now. But I can only see our shipments, and these are going up. But that's quite normal, and I think this will stabilize over a certain period of time. And then we see, how sustainable that is. But I think that's kind of if they have 300 cans of ravioli at home, that's enough for a year or so. That means that will somehow normalize.
Yeah, there are going to be some interesting cook-ups when this is all over.
Yeah,
John,
quite interesting.
I don't know if you can you hear me?
Am I on the call? Can people hear me?
A quick
Yes.
observation, which is that from the data we've seen, the big kind of effect, whether you're a brand or you're a retailer, is that because people are forced to try products and retailers that they haven't tried before because they'll take what they can get, that's a big shaking up of all of the balls. And if you ask people whether they're likely to change their behavior afterwards in the sentiment stuff that I've seen, actually quite a high proportion of people are. So it's not necessarily good news or bad news for one particular group or another. It's rather that everything is up for grabs in a way that people hadn't expected could happen in one go, but it has.
Yeah, it's an acceleration. I think Niels was trying to get a word in. Flavia, is it possible that you open up to the floor?
Hi everybody, Niels from Spar International. It's interesting to pick up on a conversation about categories, because we have quite a large business in Italy, and Italy is obviously 2 to 3 weeks ahead of the rest of Europe in terms of lockdown, as well as in terms of the outbreak and the severity of the outbreak. And we're seeing actually that in both fresh and packaged goods, they follow more or less the same trend. So prior to the for the whole of market, this is, by the way, not just Spar. But prior to the outbreak, there was a growth of 2 to 4% in fresh and packaged. And then as the outbreak started mid-Feb, we saw that packaged and fresh started growing in terms of 10 to 20% on last year, with the peak in week of the ending the 15th of March of up to 23%. Again, this is for the whole of Italy, not just Spa. And we're seeing in some regions we're seeing growth of up to 60 or 70% on fresh and packaged. But on non-food actually, and it's predominantly the larger format non-food, obviously the non-food in terms of sanitizers and household cleaning, etc. That's obviously high, but the rest of non-food is really taking a huge drop. So you can really tell that people are focusing on food and non-food essentials, where non-food non-essentials like perfumes, hair care, those kind of products are dropping considerably, up to 26% versus last year in drop. So it's quite interesting to see that trend, and we're seeing similar trends also in just our Spa business as well. But I think maybe, is Joop still on the call, or is he gone? I think he's off, right?
Seems to have dropped off. Yeah,
I think so. Yeah. It was interesting to see is now that what we're seeing in Italy is that actually that there is the growth is slowing down now. So after about 4 or 5 weeks, we do see that the growth in the categories is slowing down. Still, it's considerable double-digit above last year, but not as much as previous weeks. So now, interesting to get maybe from Joop's perspective when he's back. I'd like to know how that's happening in China. Obviously, China is again 2 or 3 weeks ahead of Italy, or more, a month ahead of Italy. To understand how that's behaved, because what we're fearing is that once all of this is over, people will have obviously got quite high stockpiles of food, particularly dry foods. And that we're concerned that this might have an impact on the months after the crisis, where people will pick up their social lives again. People will go out for dinner more. People will be yearning for that kind of socializing, which might see a drop in home consumption again. So yeah, we'd be kind of keen to understand from a Chinese perspective how that would work. So maybe, I don't know if he's back, but maybe if you can remind me when he's back to ask that question, because I think that's a challenge for us that we're going to encounter. Is that the peak will obviously be followed by, hopefully not, but might be followed by a trough, which is from a food perspective quite challenging.
I mean, maybe Richard, given your experience, you've got different countries in your portfolio at a different time in the crisis. Have you seen a similar kind of initial spike and then drop off, like seems to be beginning to happen in Italy and some of the other countries outside the Netherlands?
No, because we actually had to close entirely in Belgium, France, now the UK. We've closed down. The Middle East, every country is now locked down. Certainly prior, there was a huge shift to daily essentials. You could see it, whether it was in baby care, in personal care, in the things that really people, as well as food, really cherished. I tell you where we've seen a really big spike is in anything that I will call home entertainment. So crafting, stationery, you've got families to be occupied. You've got children that need time out of home learning. They are categories like the food equivalents of dry goods. So we haven't really got a market, which is quite unusual, that's not in that limbo. We've got either the Netherlands, which is trading fully open, fully trading hours in high streets that are largely open. Then we've got people closed. It's closed.
That's interesting. Yeah. James, is that maybe something you can speak into a little bit? You were wanting to say something? James?
James, can you unmute yourself?
No worries. I know we've got Karen on the call as well. Can people still hear me? I'm getting people shaking heads.
Yes.
You can. Thank you. If Karen's on the call, I think it'd be pretty interesting to see if this is something that she's seeing across the world in their clients. Karen, are you with us?
Yes, I'm with you. So I think we do see a twofold behavior. We do see some categories where, honestly, like it was mentioned before, the away from home consumption has just literally shifted into the B2C channel and right away to private consumers. And those categories in the markets, you don't see that too massive stock up, but it's also really usage pattern that you see. So there's a more channel shift rather than a total consumption shift. of people stocked up and decline. You have some other categories where, yes, people have done a massive stock up, and you do see, as they kind of like, as in Asia, when China goes out of crisis, you see a slowdown in the peaks, but we haven't seen a total drop off across the board in those markets. I think there was one earlier discussion on private label versus branded, and I totally agree with James' comment on, yes, people are experimenting more because sometimes you just take the brand that is available. If people have a choice, you do see a stronger trend towards brands, which is, even in markets like Germany, very, very uncommon, given we're known to be a private label environment. And we do see some players hopping actively onto that opportunity to be pushed more on the branded side.
Thanks, Karen. That's very, very useful. James, you're frowning. I'm not sure you're still with us. Flavia, if people want to ask questions, is there an easy way to ask questions? Do they just type it in on the tool and then you can share them with us?
Exactly, yes. You have the questions, little button there that you can press, or you can raise your hand, and I'm looking at everything that is happening here. We do have a question, but it's for Joop, but he's just left. I mean, so, but maybe.
He is the flavor of the month.
Yeah, I'm paying attention here to see if there are any other questions.
Great. Well, I think maybe a general question, whoever feels like they got a good answer can jump in here. In terms of customer communication, is there anything that you've learned or that you've seen people doing really well in your context? Do you say that's best practice in terms of that customer communication, customer relationship?
I think if I can maybe quickly answer that, from my perspective, there are a couple of things, that are important now, is in terms of, you have a twofold communication, to the consumers, to the shoppers, and then to retailers. From our perspectives, it's really about, in these areas, building trust, making things transparent. It's I think quite important to be responsive, be there. And also for the consumers, for a food supplier, it's really nutritional advisors. They have multiple channels to do it. I assume that we and others, have some expertise on that. That's somehow, if you are at the end, really collecting the best practices, I assume, that a couple of things are related to that. So, but the key things is really now to build trust and be transparent, on what you can deliver by when. So it's and that we are try to ensure availability. A couple of, I think it's basic things.
That's great. Joop, welcome back. We're just talking about things we've learned about customer communication in terms of your journey. Do you feel like there's anything you've learned or that you've got really right on the customer communications during this crisis?
No, I think, we're still learning. Every day you'll come across like different scenarios, so you need to work together as a team, from the office all the way to the store level to make a sensible decision. I think we've been very open in terms of how we clean the stores, how we treat our frontline frontline workers, and also how we deal with the situation. And additionally, we also kept all lines of communications open with the central government and also with the local government, because we're in this together. So, and I don't think the virus will discriminate in any way. So we need to work together, public sector as well as the private sector, to tackle this and make the best out of this situation. Yeah.
Richard, it looked like you were nodding there. Is that similar to your approach with Hamer?
Yeah, I think the one thing I'd say is I think I'll move it from customer to people. I think communication with your people has been really critical. So we would, our CEO is in regular either vlog or a video clip on what is going on. So it's very personable. It's directly where every either online or offline sales associate or team member can see it. So keeping, because that then conveys the reality to our customers. Because those people, I mean, the biggest thing is giving people confidence and trust they can work safely, that then obviously infiltrates consumers who are extremely nervous about going in, or you would not see the traffic drops. So I think that's been the learning we've had, is just comms is you, obviously there's all the working from home and new way of communication, but I think the face-to-face to our people has been critical.
That's great. While you were off, Niels from Spa was on the line, and he was describing what they'd seen in the overall Italian market with a boost in fresh and packaged, and then it coming off a bit. Actually looked like maybe people were beginning to burn down their stockpiles. They had too high a stock cover at home potentially. I wonder if that's been a similar experience in the Chinese market, as after the initial surge in volumes, it's been depressed, or have you seen continuing higher volumes?
No, we see, high volume all the way until this very moment. But we know that, the sense of panic will escalate if we don't take actions. So what we did in the initial, couple of weeks of the virus outbreak, we limited the number of quantities that each customer could buy in specific categories, whether it's in vegetable, in meat, in rice, oil, or other items. We kept the maximum purchase quantity, so that shoppers will not panic buy. So we want to make sure that we serve as many people as possible, and that certain shoppers don't create a stockpile at their homes, and that they will bring it back in a couple of weeks' time. So, and I think like having a limited quantities for specific items is extremely important.
Sorry, Yup, I've lost you there. Could everyone else hear Yup fine? Ah, good. Well, then
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Hi. So I have a question on the questions panel for Joop. Are there any specific opening hours at Sam's Club for the most vulnerable, or for other groups of people?
So we, when the virus outbreak just began, we didn't make any we didn't have a different policy for elderly, because we just did not know that the virus was vulnerable for a particular customer group. So what we did is that the sentiments of the shoppers were, get in touch with as less people as possible. Hence, we're focusing a lot on our e-commerce business. So we want to make sure that we, kept in stock in all the e-commerce channels, and also we want to make sure that we have sufficient staffing at the EC fulfillment center, and also with the last mile delivery, so that we're able to serve the shoppers where they need the most. And I think the biggest benefit of our Chinese shoppers, even when you're 80 years old, you know how to handle a smartphone. And if you don't know how to handle a smartphone, your children will help you out with the grocery shopping, and that is one of the biggest benefits here.
I have a question from Paul Ford. Paul, I will unmute you so you can. Hello, Paul. Can you? Okay, Paul, can you hear us?
I can hear you. Do you hear me okay?
Yes, we hear you. If you,
okay, great.
So you had a question, if you can introduce yourself and ask your question.
I'll ask that, and good to see everyone on the call, and also Flavia, thanks for organising this. My question is, I guess to people like John and Niels from a retailer perspective, but are you seeing changing shopper attitudes towards loose product, whether that's produce or bakery items, those types of things? And also, if so, what are you doing to address that? And do you start to see shopper habits that you believe are going to form into longer term habits that you'll need to change the retail operations side to meet?
Niels, you also have the microphone if you want to answer.
Say that again, sorry.
Niels,
Yeah, Niels,
if you want to answer, yes, you have the microphone open.
Niels, did you hear the
sorry,
question
Paul.
or not?
No, not totally. Can you repeat that?
No worries. So look, just you know, as you start to get into products in store like loose products like produce, fruit, veg, bakery, are you seeing changing shopper attitudes towards those categories? And if so, you know, how are you dealing with those? And also, are you starting to anticipate or see changing habits that you believe are going to stick, that you'll need to change things in store longer term to meet those needs?
Yeah, well, for sure. Obviously, in most European markets, but actually now also outside of Europe as well, globally. Obviously the HoReCa business, restaurant, bars, cafes, etc., they're all closed. So we're seeing a lot more home consumption, which also means that obviously with kids at home, most schools are closed across Europe, which means that people are actually cooking a lot more at home, or only preparing food at home. But not only in the evening.
It's more about whether you're seeing any attitudes towards picking up loose product, whether they're concerned about that, whether you're putting any signage up, that sort of stuff.
Oh, in that sense, yeah. Sorry, I thought no. Yes, yes. Well, the reality is that at the moment we are trying to guide as much as possible our partners towards that. So in some markets, for example, we've closed our self-service machines. So coffee, self-service coffee, self-service juicers, that kind of stuff, smoothie makers, etc. We've had to close. If people want freshly squeezed juice, they have to ask a member of staff, because obviously they've got the right gear in order to operate those machines. So we have done that. In terms of loose products and things that are high touch items, we are trying to communicate to customers to use bags and gloves as much as possible. But the reality is that we're in huge shortage across the world for this kind of material. So we simply can't provide everybody with the same level of protection. And obviously, in quite a few markets, there's now also regulations on store staff that if they don't have protective gear, they're not allowed to work at all. And that it goes from face masks to gloves to sometimes even eye goggles and visors. So we have to prioritize that, of course, in order to keep servicing our customers. So we try and do that as much as possible with communications. So we use a lot of POS material, very more traditional stuff, both online and offline, to encourage customers to use bags and gloves as much as possible where possible. But overall, the need to feed your family is great, and because now you're not only having dinner at home, you're also having breakfast and lunch at home. So we've not really had any major backlash on that.
Okay.
In terms of volumes, or that people are shifting to packaged goods. It's actually, fresh food is by far outtrending everything. So as we were talking before about fresh food versus packaged goods versus non-food, fresh food is at the top, because people do more bulk buying, bulk cooking, and obviously people have to watch the pennies, so they're more inclined to make at home, and all the pre-packed stuff is still a high demand, but it's not by no means taking away from the bulk displays and fresh foods, etc.
Yeah. Okay, clear.
Does that answer your question?
It does. Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah.
So I had a question for you guys who are operating retail stores in particular.
Yes.
That's to the extent to which you've strategically identified social media as a way to talk to customers. I say that because the Facebook community groups where I am in Cornwall and where we are half the time in London are absolutely abuzz with talk about retailers. And some of the retailers have actually been posting directly in these small groups, which then, of course, get magnified in WhatsApp groups for blocks of flats and for streets. I've never seen retailers be talked about so much, and it's clearly a very powerful
channel, but have any of you been thinking about that or actually using it quite deliberately from the centre?
Yeah, so I'll go if that's all right. Yes, for sure. Obviously, Spar is a brand that tends to be at the heart of communities. It's one of our brand pillars, I would say, and we're using social media a lot. And I think coming back to the question earlier, there's no such thing, especially in this time, as over communication. We're seeing an extreme upsurge in both all of our partners across the world communicating either about health and safety, health and wellness, or about thanking obviously the people at the front line, and recognizing the risks that they take in order to help feed the nation, type of thing. You just see that there is a general, the recognition for health workers, for truck drivers, for distribution center staff, for people who work in the stores. It seems to be genuine from the public. Therefore, for us as retailers to talk about that and to bring that into the attention of what we're doing to protect those people, what are we doing to protect the staff, is recognized and well received. So yes, we do that, and we use social media in that extensively at the moment. It's also, of course, you've got to be cautious. We've had some instances where communications have not been received well, and they also get magnified, of course. So you do have to be cautious about what you talk about. But we find that if you're genuine and if you're genuine and honest and transparent, that gets received quite well. Even the more negative messages, for example, about store closures or reducing of opening time. In normal days, if you would announce that you're closing the store at 7 instead of 10 o'clock at night, you'd get a backlash, and everybody would be saying, why are you closing? This is my primary shopping time, etc. But now with the circumstances that we're in, people are understanding that, and by just being open and transparent to say, look, we have to close at 7 because we need to give our staff the time to restock the shelves. Or even closing on a Sunday, whilst we normally trade 7 days a week, to say, we're closing on a Sunday because it's not the day that our customers come the most. The majority of the shopping happens on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, so it's already our lowest day. Plus, we need to give our staff a day of rest. They're at health risk 6 days a week. So we're giving them 1 day a week of rest, hence we're closing the store. And we're finding that the transparency, honesty really is important in that. We're all, as you were saying, this is not this virus doesn't discriminate. We're all affected by it. So we need to have a little bit of unity in that. We're seeing lots of initiatives in markets as well where we normally compete, people we normally compete with, we collaborate with now, either in supply or in securing of goods, or in ways that we try and help each other. So yes, it's really working, and it's extremely important to keep communicating continuously from a retail perspective, at least, I would say.
John, are you back?
I think I'm back. I
You're
know
back.
we're short on time, so I'd love to ask my favorite question to people who are effectively living in the future compared to where I am in my market, and say, if you could go back in time 2 weeks, what action would you do differently now that you know what you now know?
Well, if I'll leave the floor to our people that have dialed in from abroad, of course, as well, but as people are quiet. I think from our side, it's I wouldn't say underestimation, but I think the signals we will have. I think it's not just Spar. I think it's the entire industry. We've received signals way sooner than we may have been willing to accept, and we should have picked up on those sooner. Not necessarily because we're now struggling or we're now not able to provide the service that we wish to provide, but I think we would have made ourselves quite a lot easier had we taken precautions a little bit earlier, even if it was only a week earlier. And I think that's been a big learning for us. I think overall we're all right. We've not had any major issues like maybe in the UK, Tesco, Sainsbury's type of situation scenarios and panic buying, all the videos that we've seen in Australia. But I think recognizing that this was a bigger problem than we thought it was, I think is something that we should have done even if it was a week earlier. Obviously, this is on in the countries that maybe have only gone into lockdown more recently. In Italy, obviously, it's a different story. We're far further ahead. But again, I don't think it's an issue related specifically to one organization, one brand. I think it's an industry-wide problem that we've had in grocery, that we should have responded sooner as an industry rather than just one brand or one organization.
Thanks, Niels.
I think if I can, John, if I can add something on that, because I think it's potentially we are better prepared, after we did our aftermath, for the next pandemic. I'm not sure if we are prepared, for the next cyber war or whatever happens next, which is exceptional. So I don't know. So it's therefore I think it's more for me, for the bigger companies, think about, your fundamental strengths. So what are you good in, and how you can support in any case of crisis. That's point one for me, and point two is for me for the people, because I think what I observed, if you have a team, not many of the young people are really learn to live with ambiguity. So and we're able to build resilience because they are kind of a couple of years in the job. So and I think here I think if we can do some HR trainings also to build up resilience, to build up to learn to live with ambiguity, to how to do crisis management, because it will get more frequent now potentially. This would be really helpful to avoid that anybody is after week one panicking. So and we need 2-3 weeks to get to a working mode. This time can be reduced if we can really take our kind of our legacy as leaders a bit more serious to educate our team a bit better to cope with that insecurities. I think it's I would say it the headline would be tolerance of ambiguity. So this can be strengthened, then I think it's good.
Hard thing to train. Joep, anything if you could go back in time that you would do differently?
I would say increase the speed. I think the crisis management team did a fabulous job. It took us a couple of days to get us into the mode. It was like right in the bang in the middle of Chinese New Year, so we had to ask a lot of our team members to come off the holiday and get into crisis management mode. It took us a couple of days just to get a grip and a handle on the situation. But once we've got a handle of it, we took it quite seriously, and we were able to speed things up. And I think the words of encouragement is that don't underestimate the situation, plan for the worst, and additionally enable the team on the ground at the front line, enable them to make the decisions quicker. And here at the head office, we should be able to provide them with the support and take out any barriers if required. And I think you cannot say thank you enough to the teams. And I would also like to encourage you to continue to do so, and also be very visible. Despite the fact that everyone's working from home, there are 99% of our teams are working out there. So we go there quite frequently, and work with them side by side just to make sure that we get the right information, and also we're able to build some trust. We're all in this together, and together we getting through it. And the best thing of it, there will be light at the end of the tunnel. But this is not a sprint, this is a marathon. So make sure that everyone is prepared, and also get some rest occasionally.
Yeah,
John,
let me.
Before you wrap up, I have Vito Lobefaro from TCC who wanted to comment as well. Vito, you have the microphone.
Yeah, thank you. Good morning to everybody. What I can add to this conversation is that the situation in the Italian market is quite complicated. Just giving an answer to the previous question, what would we have done differently compared to now? Actually, I think we have underestimated the crisis outbreak in the Italian market. We thought at the beginning, in February, that this crisis was involving only China and the Far East, and then we just woke up from this dream and recognized that the crisis was outbreaking also in Italy. So this was a very big mistake we made with a great impact in the grocery market. For example, I can only agree with the previous comments about stockpiles from the supermarkets, and this is it. What we should have done better was to better identify the potential of the crisis that was impacting the Italian market. This is it.
Vito, thanks for sharing. That's a great perspective. Well, I'm getting a private message from Flavio to say that we are through our hour. So I just wanted to say thank you to everyone who's part of this experiment. I know we're all very busy, so really appreciate the insights. I found it enormously useful. I'll try to do my Alex Thompson impression. Well, I guess what you're saying is it's a marathon, not a sprint, and get some rest. So thank you very much to everyone for your perspective, and look forward to carrying on these conversations. Thank you.